So did anybody have toast for breakfast today? Whether you prefer whole grain or gluten-free or maybe a good sourdough, bread is a staple food in most American homes. And bread has been a source of sustenance, at least in the Middle East, throughout the Western world for centuries. Bread is that thing that nourishes us in body, but even more than that, it leaves us feeling satisfied and full and content. Bread is a comfort food in our lives. And I think Jesus is trying to connect our spiritual and our social and our psychological needs together with this comfort food that nourishes body and soul. And he does this by saying, I am the bread of life. And we know that people have survived and thrived on fish and bread with a little fruit and vegetables for most of history. Now, of course, if we were in Asia, we'd have to talk about rice, and Jesus would be the rice of life. But we'll stick with bread for today. For in this story that we're reading, we're picking up where we left off. It's the day after Jesus fed the crowds of thousands with just a few loaves of bread and a few fish. And this crowd does not want to go home. They don't want this amazing day to end, and they have some plans now. They're thinking, wow, this could be the beginning of a political revolution. And we're told that Jesus realizes that they are about to come and take him by force to become king, and he withdraws by himself to the mountain. And then when the evening comes, his disciples are looking for him too, and so they get in a boat and they start across the sea to go towards Capernaum. And the waters get rough for the disciples, and Jesus has to walk out to them and bring them back to shore. But remember, we've talked about this before, the importance of crossing over stories. These are not just descriptions of something that happened. These are signs for us, for the readers, that something important is about to happen. They are going through a threshold experience. Jesus and his closest friends have crossed over the rough waters, and the crowds follow. Nicola Torbett points out that Jesus has left the people on the other side of the lake because they tried to make him king. Jesus is actively resisting recruitment into an imperial, militarized framework of thinking. He does not want to rule. He does not want to take over. To say that Jesus is the bread of life is to say that love incarnate is the substance of the world. And this love is inconsistent with imperialism, nationalism, anything that tears us apart. And he does understand that this crowd that is following him, they're not wealthy, they are hungry. And he understands that they deserve more than this life of constant struggle to survive. But maybe he's urging them and urging us to look for different, deeper solutions. Solutions rooted in an understanding that the God of creation provides for all people. Last week we talked about our belief in God's abundance that overcomes our fear of scarcity. And Torbett agrees that God has provided enough for everyone. The problem is we keep making kings. In other words, we keep thinking the solution to our hunger is to organize ourselves into militarized bodies. There's an us over here versus a them over there. And we get what we need and more and hoard it over here, whether they have anything or not. This is not a new concept. When the ancient Israelites demanded that they wanted a king, they were rejecting God as king over them. And God warned them that a king would force their children to serve in the military and would appropriate the best of their crops and their livestock to go to the royal family. And you know yourselves will become slaves, God tells them. This is just what kings do. So in our story with Jesus, once the crowd crosses over these waters again and finds him, he tries to tell them they're missing the point. He implores them, don't work for the food that perishes, but for the food that endures for eternal life. And they're listening. So what work do we have to do to get this food you're talking about? You can feel his exasperation. The only work that God is asking of you is to trust what I'm teaching you, what I'm showing you with the way that I live my life. The crowd following him that day is asking them, okay, where do we get this bread that satisfies? And again, he repeats, I am the bread of life. He's talking about more than food that keeps our bodies going. We need that. God knows we need that. But that we also need more than that to survive and to thrive. There is food that endures for eternal life, which the Son of Man will give you. This food nurtures life. It does not depend on being over against anyone. This food has no enemies. No one is alien, and there is enough. Shannon Jung advises us that we do need to pay attention and attend to our hungers. We need to examine what are our deepest needs. We need to be able to identify where our appetite ends and where greed begins. Otherwise, we will continue to live with unsatisfied appetites rather than learning how to be truly happy. We need to locate and prioritize our most authentic hungers so that we can learn to live together in a way that respects each other and all of the natural world as well. Now, I think as Jesus is trying to get this across, he also understands that we get our ideas about what we need, about what will make us happy from looking around, from each other, and that's a problem. Paul Nutrilin points out that it is in our world of nonstop advertising that leads to this consumerism that is the epitome of bread that does not satisfy. We know that studies have been done over the years that show that the number of very happy people, at least in America, peaked in the 1950s. It has been declining ever since. Even though we consume more than twice what people did in the 1950s, we are less happy than they were even then. Even though now Americans have garages as big as houses used to be in the 50s, people were more content, more satisfied. We might have more stuff, more resources seem abundant, and yet we find ourselves less happy, less satisfied, because someone is always telling us that we always need something more. And it comes natural. We see this human tendency play out with children in preschool classes, in play dates. Someone ends up fighting over one toy. Even though there's an abundance of toys, there is only that toy, the one that the other kid has and is having so much fun with, that surely only that toy can make me happy. It appears to be something that is scarce, and they fight over it. And unfortunately, we don't outgrow this childish behavior. If we did, our marketing companies wouldn't be so successful in making so much money, always suggesting new desires and new needs for us. They play the role of the serpent in the garden, suggesting desires that will never satisfy us. And we fall into the game over and over. I just need this one more thing that will make my life better, using up more and more resources. Johann Hari, in his book, describes a conversation around the reasons why people buy things that just aren't necessities, that aren't needed. Sometimes people admitted to buying things just because they were feeling down, maybe to alleviate a bad day or a sense of depression. The teenagers he spoke to said they crave this stuff because they just want to belong. Branded clothes meant you will be accepted. The group will give you a sense of status. As they explored this in conversation, it became clear that spending very often isn't about the object. It's about getting to some psychological state that makes you feel better. When people began to talk about how they had been spending, it became more noticeable what this was really about. It seems often about filling up a hole, filling up a loneliness gap. And then people were asked to try to really think about what they truly value as most important in life, and it comes back to looking after your family, being honest in your relationships, helping other people. The things that truly satisfy the needs we truly have. We can look back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs to remind us, yes, we all need food, and we need water, and we need shelter. We need a basic sense of security, but in order to reach that, we need relationships, we need family, community. And as humans created in the image of God, we need to feel competent and creative to have purpose and meaning in life. We need to be known for who we are, accepted and included, to be loved as we are loved, to be able to give that love to others. These needs are as real human needs as food and water. But we struggle, given that we are flawed, imperfect beings who were raised by flawed, imperfect beings. We continue generation after generation to struggle, to live lives that recognize and meet these basic human needs, to love and be loved. So we find ourselves needing forgiveness that we can feel, needing connections that we can trust. We need to forgive ourselves. And maybe that's where this bread of life comes in. For the one from whom nothing is hidden, that one loves us unconditionally. If we could just grasp that, then we could begin to give that same companionship and understanding and love and acceptance to others. For this is the bread that satisfies. This is what Christ seeks to provide. We need to absorb and internalize this truth. We are loved, flaws and failures, annoying idiosyncrasies, all included, unconditionally. This is what Christ came to say, to teach, to live, and to die for. Jesus is the bread of life. The bread of life that can finally satisfy us because he came to reveal our true and deepest desires and our needs for the love, the compassion that comes from the God who gave us life. Jesus is, for us, for all, the bread of life.